What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where every single week I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network, as well as on the Global Wrestling Network, which is where today's show comes from, TNA Sacrifice 2005. Now, admittedly, a lot of those early TNA pay-per-views were not exactly my cup of tea. Some were pretty good, some were not so good, to say the least. Check out all my previous reviews of the TNA pay-per-views from 04 to 05. This event comes from August of 2005. We had some pretty good TNA pay-per-views that year. TNA really took a turn for the better, in my opinion, in 05 through like 06 or 07. They really didn't start to go down the tubes until like 08, 09, definitely like 2010. And there were some good matches in there too, but really the prime years of people, when people think of like the glory years of TNA, I think 05, 06. And I think of shows like this. This was a damn good show overall. Sacrifice 05 overall had some great action, smart booking, keeping the filler to a minimum, and the latter half of the card especially was fucking killer. So we kicked off the event with six-man tag team action, Chris Sabin, Shark Boy, and Sanjay Dutt taking on and beating the trio of Elix Skipper, Simon Diamond, and David Young. This was fine. It was okay for the time that it was allotted, about 7 or 8 minutes. Nothing too noteworthy here. It was well wrestled, got the crowd into it. It was a fun opener. So the story here was that Simon Diamond cut a promo before the bout about how Elix Skipper had been on a, downward spiral of sorts in TNA after being booted as Christopher Daniels' tag team partner way back when. I think early on in 05 or late 04. I remember watching and talking about that here on the WrestleRant videos with the TNA pay-per-view reviews. Daniels went on to great success, obviously being one of the greatest X Division champions the company had ever seen. Still the X Division champion by this time, by this pay-per-view. Elix Skipper, on the other hand, really just kind of floundered, and Simon Diamond was trying to turn his career around, help him turn a new leaf. Well, unsuccessfully anyway. They lost here. I think it was Skipper who got pinned. The match was good, though. After that, we had another match between Shocker and Alex Shelley. I can't remember if they've battled on the last pay-per-view that we watched. Let me double-check here. I don't think they did, but I know they had a series of matches over that point in TNA's history, Alex Shelley and Shocker. And they had another really good match here, too. Maybe not their best encounter. Maybe not as good as it could have been, considering what both guys were capable of. Now, I give no shits about Shocker. I've made no bones about that in the past. I really give two shits. I could not give two shits about Shocker. Oh, he was in a McDonald's commercial. Like, who cares? But in the ring, the guy is second to none. He was a really good wrestler. Personally, I'm an Alex Shelley fan. I was glad he emerged victorious here. It was a good match. Maybe not as exciting or as amazing as it could have been. Largely due to Shocker. He seemed a bit off his game in this match for whatever reason. But there were a series of matches concluded here with Shelley going over. We had Abyss taking on Lance Hoyt up next. Abyss was on the up and up in TNA, competing in great matches almost on every single pay-per-view, whether it was with Raven or with AJ Styles. This was also really fucking good. I honestly was not expecting this match to be as good as it was. It was about 10 minutes long. Hoyt looked good. Abyss looked great. Abyss was like in the prime of his career at this point. He had a really good performance. It was nicely paced. They told a good story. Abyss went over. Hoyt put up a big enough fight, enough of a fight and defeat without looking like a loser and being beaten by Abyss. I thought it was a real good match with the right result. We had 3 Live Crew taking on Kip James and Monty Brown, with BG James, otherwise known as Road Dogg, serving as the special guest referee. This was fine, by no means great at all, but that being said, it was better than anything else I had seen these guys involved in around this time in TNA's history. There were a lot of bad matches that I've talked about here on the show before involving the 3 Live Crew, Kip James, Monty Brown, not really Monty Brown, I'm not really sure when he got involved in this whole thing, but BG James, Kip James, 3 Live Crew, that being Ron Killings and Conan. The matches were really not that good. The whole story here was BG James, will he call it down the middle? Will he feel favored towards Kip James, considering their history? He was not. Kip James kind of shoved BG James a few times, and BG James, fought back. He battled back and caused Kip James and Monty Brown to lose the match as the special guest referee. It was fine. I thought the story was good. The in-ring action was really nothing special, but they successfully furthered the feud between BG James and Kip James, and the match was not nearly as bad as it could have been. Then our first really good match of the night between Christopher Daniels and Austin Aries. Now, this was a non-title X Division Championship match, so the X Division Championship was not on the line here. For what reason, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Aries did not earn it. I don't think Daniels knew going in that Aries would be his opponent. I believe Aries was a mystery opponent, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why this would be a non-title match. Because if it was a non-title match, then, if it was a championship match, rather, there would be more suspense. People would have more of a reason to believe that, Aries could go over, and if he won, there would actually be consequences. He didn't win anyway, even with it being a non-title match. Daniels continued to roll on here with another victory, but this match was awesome. Aries showed at this point why he was one of the best in the world, and he still is to this day. 13 years later, over a dozen years later, Aries is still killing it all over the independent scene, including in Impact. But no, this was awesome. Daniels and Aries had amazing chemistry. Aries went in there and really proved a point why he belonged in that X division. This was an amazing showing by one of the greatest men to have ever lived, as he would say himself, as he proclaims himself to be. I love this a lot. Daniels went over decisively, though. Jerry Lynn took on Sean Waltman. I guess they had, teased something a few months earlier. Jerry Lynn had been on the shelf with an injury for over a year, and then I believe they were on the same page and whatever. I think they had, Jerry Lynn had said that he wanted to come back and have his first match back with Sean Waltman, considering that they were friends and they had that history. This was a great fucking match. I honestly did not expect this to be as good as it was. Because Sean Waltman, the former X-Pac, Six-Pac, whatever, was well past his prime. Jerry Lynn was also well past his prime. Yet despite that, both guys went in there, had something to prove, and had an awesome fucking match. They were given about 15 minutes, way longer than anything else in the show up to this point. Probably double the time of anything else on the show up to this point. So keep that in mind here, despite the guys not being really exactly up-and-comers. But it was a real fun match. I thought they told a great story, a showing of respect between both men. Jerry Lynn looked to be at the top of his game. Waltman not losing a step either, despite, having problems at this point and not really being the X-Pac of old. But no, they went in there and had a great match, a really, really good match. Then in the end, Jerry Lynn went over, emerged victorious, scored the victory, and after the match, Sean Waltman attacked Jerry Lynn, kind of betraying him, showing him, telling him, why the fuck would you do this, blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was a real good story told here. Waltman was jealous of Lynn in defeat, so he attacked him afterwards, prolonging that feud. This was real good. The match was great. The post-match angle was great, too. Everything about this I thought was 2 thumbs up worthy. We had Team Canada and... Team Canada taking on both America's Most Wanted and the Naturals in 8-man tag team action. Now, of course, the Naturals and America's Most Wanted had been established, documented rivals by this point. So for them to kind of put their differences aside and form a cohesive unit was questionable. In the end, it didn't work, which I liked. Team Canada was on a roll. They should have won here. They did win here. There was no reason for them to lose. America's Most Wanted and the Naturals, as great of teams as they were, apart, it remained to be seen how well they would work together given their checkered past. And ultimately, that was what cost them here, and it was Team Canada who emerged victorious as the dominant force that they were at this point in TNA. So I liked the match. It wasn't really anything great by any means, considering the talent involved. It was honestly a little disappointing, but still, I think with so many people involved, you kind of, there is, reason to believe that it's not going to be a great match, or that it's going to be like, your typical multi-man match. Not everyone is going to be able to get showcased at one time. So I thought it was a fine match for what it was. Again, could have been way better than it was, but still had the right result. Can't really complain about that. It was not a bad match by any means. And then we get to our 2 top main events here, including in the finals of the 2005 TNA Super X Cup, AJ Styles taking on Samoa Joe. The timing of this is perfect. I'm putting up this review on Friday, and I was not expecting this to coincide with today's Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which will see AJ Styles and Samoa Joe battle once again, this time for the WWE Championship. The more things change, the more they stay the same, as the old saying goes. But yeah, this is really cool. Obviously at Crown Jewel, it was supposed to be AJ and Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Bryan didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia, so it's Joe instead. We'll see if the result is different this time. Joe won on this show. Joe emerged victorious. He had been undefeated for months, ever really since he arrived in TNA. I don't think he had spoken a single word either until I'm not even really sure. I'm pretty sure that he was silent for his entire time here before he spoke in like a backstage promo with what's his name, Shane Douglas, the interviewer. But I don't know if maybe that translated to a feud. I'm not really sure. They kind of teased that, but no, this was the real highlight of the night here. Joe and AJ had amazing chemistry. I mean, if you've ever seen that Joe, AJ, Daniels three-way, which I'm sure I will review eventually here on the show, it might be the very next TNA pay-per-view review that I do. Not only did they win the TNA X Cup, they also earned themselves, essentially, a shot at Christopher Daniels' X Division Championship, which was not defended on the show, as I said earlier. So Daniels sat on commentary. The match was fucking amazing. Daniels attempted to interfere. That's what cost AJ the victory. And Joe went over in decisive fashion. So this was awesome. AJ was protected very well in defeat. Joe looked like an absolute monster. The match got great time. And yeah, just everything about this was pure excellence. And thankfully, the beginning of a long-running rivalry between the two that will continue tonight at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia over the WWE Championship and not the X Division Championship. Again, really kind of crazy to think how, these guys started out as X Division guys 13 years ago in TNA, and now over a dozen years later are competing for the, no pun intended, the crown jewel of WWE on a very big pay-per-view. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad this coincided with that, because when I first watched the show a couple days ago, the change had yet to be made with Joe facing AJ for the WWE Championship. Like I said, it was supposed to be AJ and Bryan. So it's kind of cool that it worked out that way. Definitely before you watch Crown Jewel today, I'm sure this will be up before the pay-per-view, check out this match. Watch this show, if only for Joe and AJ, because this match was amazing. I'm sure whatever you're going to see at Crown Jewel will not be nearly as good as this, including from AJ and Joe. But still, this match was well worth the watch and really a prime example of how far these guys would go in the business. Then the main event was also quite the treat, a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be, to be quite honest. A tag team match pitting Raven and Sabu. Raven, at that point being the then NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Those two took on the tandem of Rhino and Jeff Jarrett. So it was announced before the show that TNA was moving to Spike TV. And they were playing up the possibility that all these people might be fired and moving to a new network, all this other stuff. So anyway, Jarrett's basically saying, he wanted a new title shot. He deserved the title shot. He never really got his rightful rematch after losing the championship back, I think, at Slammiversary 2 months prior. And he was told that if he lost, I think by, I don't remember who it was, maybe by a network executive or by Dusty Rhodes, but they had said during the pre-show that if Jeff Jarrett lost here, regardless of whether he was pinned or not, he would not get another shot at the NWA World Heavyweight Championship for up to a year. So this was a must-win situation for him, given that Jeff Jarrett was a staple in the World Championship picture at this point. You had to know that he wasn't going to lose. But the match itself was a lot of fun. Rhino looked great. Rhino looked fucking awesome here. Raven and Sabu also looked very good. They worked well together for two guys that had not really been at the top of their game since their ECW days years earlier. This was a lot of fun. They probably knew they were not going to go in there and have a great wrestling match. So as a pure brawl, this was exactly what it needed to be and just a lot of fucking fun. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, this was great. They got a ton of time in almost 16, 17 minutes. Jarrett and Rhino did indeed go over in the end. So Jarrett's no title shots for a year was not no longer standing. And I forgot what the stipulation was if Jarrett and Rhino won. I don't think anything. But the match was great, though. I'm sure it did set up Jarrett and Rhino, or rather Jarrett and Raven, in a rematch of that NWA World Heavyweight Championship at the next show. I would assume, I'm not sure. So we'll see when I break down the next TNA pay-per-view right here on WrestleRant in a few short weeks. So with all that being said, guys, those are my 2 cents on Sacrifice 2005. On the whole, it was a real good show. One of the better TNA pay-per-views I've watched up to this point from those early years of TNA. The main event was really, really good. Joe and AJ was easily the match of the night. So if there's any one match to watch from this show, definitely Joe and AJ. Especially before you watch Crown Jewel later today on the WWE Network. If you are indeed watching this before Crown Jewel. That match was amazing. Lynn and Waltman was excellent. Definitely watch Lynn and Waltman. It was a lot better than I thought it would be, so don't think, oh god, 2 old guys going at it. Like, they're not really old at this point, for one thing. Second of all, give it a chance. The match was great. And Daniels and Aries, too, was also a fucking great match for the 10 minutes they were given. So check out Sacrifice 2005, if only for those matches. Good show overall. Gets a thumbs up from yours truly. We'll be back next week with my thoughts on NXT TakeOver War Games from 2017. We are quickly approaching. I believe that's next week. No, it's not. I'm a total liar. We have... Oh, no, it is next week. It is next week. I'm not a liar after all. We got our TakeOver War Games review next week. And then the Friday after that will be my review of Survivor Series 2017. So we got a back-to-back doubleheader in the next 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that right here on the channel. Till then, guys, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. And with all that being said, folks, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.